welcome to the Tea and a Buddy podcast. I'm Dominic.
And I'm Erica.
And today we're going to be talking about British shows that an American like you, those people, those American people just aren't that into and just don't care for.
I mean, this is sort of a specific to me
It's
list.
specific to you list because, I mean, we might mention shows that you'd be like, oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And you may happen to be an American, so congratulations on that one. Really.
Congratulations on being an American.
Congratulations, yes, on liking these shows. Because, I mean, there's a couple on here that I agree with you on.
There actually weren't as many as I thought there were when we had the idea to do this podcast. Not that I could remember it.
We kind of struggled a bit.
Yeah. So I want to talk about that also, but first we'll get into the list here. And because I was having a hard time coming up with, I know that there's been shows that you have
I've shown you like documentaries
that I'm
and
just
stuff.
Like, oh god.
I'm thinking of one
do we have
without
to...
even going into the list, right? I'm thinking of Heathrow Airport documentary.
What? No, I like those things.
What?
I like
remember
those.
just going, kind of like, maybe I'm thinking of kind of like when I say, oh, let's watch the Heathrow.
No, I like those random weird documentaries about like the London Underground.
Oh,
and
the tube and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I like those.
No,
things.
sometimes I'm like, oh, let's watch an episode of that, and you're just like, no, don't like it.
Well, I mean, that just depends on like.
That's how you sound too.
Yes.
She's just doing this accent for your benefit at the moment. Yeah.
I think that just depends on like, oh, I'm not in the mood at the moment to watch. I would rather watch something scripted. I think you're confusing it with that.
Maybe, yeah.
Like
I need something.
I'm in the mood to watch something scripted, not like a documentary or a reality show or something.
Yeah.
But I know that there's been things that you have shown me over the years.
Yes.
That you're like, oh, do you want to watch another episode of that? And I'm just like, really
no.
not.
I don't want to do it.
Not even a little bit. And, I might watch another episode and then, okay, that'll be enough for the night. And then, okay, you want to watch another episode the next day, and I'm just like, oh, God, no. I'm just like dying inside. Unfortunately, I couldn't
Couldn't think of all them.
I guess over the years, I should have been making lists about things, You
should have been.
In anticipation.
Slacking on
in
it.
In anticipation of doing this podcast years later, But unfortunately, I didn't, so.
No, you didn't. You did not do that.
So I had this idea, thinking that there were a lot of things that you've shown me that I really was not a particular fan of.
Well,
but
yes.
then when we sat down trying to make the list, I couldn't really come up with that
many.
And so I Googled British shows that Americans don't get, don't understand, don't like, and a lot of the ones that were on the list, I did like. I did like.
Or haven't seen.
I did get, or just haven't seen.
Yeah, and you always like, oh, I've seen everything. You've shown me everything. You've shown me every show in British history you've shown me.
Because it really does feel like that.
It really does feel like that. Well, I've shown you all the best, anyway. All the best
I think
stuff,
so. No, a lot of the things on the list were like really weird reality
shows, Channel 4 kind of things, and we've talked about these kind of stuff before. They're kind of like, a lot of Channel 4 goes for like weird documentaries and social experiments and stuff like that, and it's like that captures the British interest more so than it does over here, because I mean, I don't know, I can't really think of any like shows that have been like popular over here that capture the American interest, like that involve a social experiment. Like, what was that one you were telling me about that they took all their clothes and their money and everything, their possessions away.
That was a British show.
A British show. Yeah, a British show.
I can't remember what it was.
I can't remember. Yeah, and they just
living life naked.
Living life naked or something.
And
that wouldn't kind of like fly over here, would it?
You were like, oh, here's one. Oh, and I was like, oh, this one's stupid. And I was like, actually, I find that interesting. I find that kind of interesting.
Like
to see how enjoyable people find life without anything with literally nothing.
Yeah.
You know, I find that an interesting concept. You know, I'm not, but the things that made my list are all scripted. I didn't go for any of the
all
reality
scripted.
Because the thing is we've got a lot of really ridiculous reality shows over here as well.
Yes,
you
yes.
know, a lot of them I think actually
more similar than you
came
might
from
think.
Britain, originated in Britain,
Yeah.
but yeah. So we'll just start off, and actually the first one that I shouted out the ones that I could think of, and you typed them up. But the first one that you put on here is Blackadder, and I don't hate Blackadder. I don't hate Blackadder.
Blackadder. It's
yeah, no.
It's a sitcom, and it's quite a good sitcom. It's one of my favorites. It's up there with Only Fools and Horses and everything.
It's not one of my favorites. No, it's definitely not. In fact,
well, now, why not? Why isn't it one of your favorites?
In fact, I understand why you put this on the list, because
you have kind of gone like,
yeah, I wouldn't go, I'm in the mood to watch Blackadder. Let's watch Blackadder.
I'm always in the mood to watch Blackadder.
I wouldn't do that, no. It's too silly for me.
Silly?
It's not that
It's historical comedy.
It's historical, yeah.
It's historical, yes, but it's not very funny.
Go ahead and say really quickly, just a really quick little bit about what it is.
It's basically traces the lineage of a fictional Edmund Blackadder.
Mm-hmm. Played by
Rowan Atkinson, who's famous as Mr. Bean.
Yeah.
And his little servant Baldric. And, you know, it kind of starts off...
Each series is set in a different time period.
Each series is set in a different time period. Like, the first series wasn't really received too well, because it just kind of, like, didn't have too much going for it.
Mm-hmm.
But the second to fourth series and, you know, the specials and everything were, like, hugely popular. And, you know, the series was set in the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
During Richard III's time. Then the second was Queen Elizabeth I. Then the third was Georgian era, and then the fourth was World War I. And, you know, it was like each of his descendants.
Yeah.
Went lower down the class scale, you know, by the time he was just a lowly captain in the British Army by Blackadder goes forth, whereas he was the prince of he was the Duke of Edinburgh in like you know, he was the son of the king, you know.
Yeah.
In the first series, and he just kind of goes down, you know.
The style of, I mean, that makes it sound really interesting.
There you go. It sounds really interesting. Now you'll watch it and you'll be like, oh, actually, it's quite funny.
And it's a comedy, and it is funny. It's not funny, but it's quite silly. I mean, I don't know. It's not my favorite, but it's something that's fine to have on, like, you know, while you're cleaning the house or something. It's like, have it on in the background. I don't mind that. I don't mind it at all.
Some of the I mean, the first series is kind of hit and miss, I'd say, you know. I mean, it's good only for having Brian Blessed in it, I think. But the second series is quite funny. You had Miranda Richardson as Queen Elizabeth I, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, some of the situations...
And we do, you know...
And then you got, like, Hugh Laurie in the third one as the Prince Regent.
Yeah.
The future George IV. And Blackadder as his butler.
I will say I quite like the Christmas special, which is
A Christmas Carol reversed.
A Christmas Carol, yeah.
Reimagined, reversed. Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. So Blackadder, it's a bit iffy. I don't hate it. I do not hate it, no. The next one, The Young Ones. To be honest, I only watched this series with you once.
Yeah.
And I've
only seen it sparingly in my lifetime. They never used to really rerun it when I was a kid. It was the height of alternative 80s comedy.
The reason I put this on the list is because I seem to remember there being a lot of, like, booger and, like,
disgusting boy humor
and fart, like, very, very boy humor.
No, know? I mean, more so than that. it was just random craziness. And it was written by Ben Elton too, who also wrote the second series of Blackadder and third and fourth. So, you know, Blackadder, you know, it's kind of silly. Mm-hmm. It was like alternative comedy in the 80s. You know, they were kind of backlashing
They were
against...
punks.
They were punks, yeah.
Yeah, like punk rockers, not
punk
like...
rockers. Do you know what it's all about? Punk rock. And I mean, that's what's kind of given way to the panel shows now. And all this other kind of like comedy, you know, like Fleabag and all this kind of stuff. You know, if the 80s hadn't happened, then British comedy would be kind of the same as American comedy is now. Yeah. You know, sitcoms. I mean, you know, to get into like a comparison of it, it's American comedy, you know, you watch the networks, it's all still kind of like family kind of oriented, you know? Like, it hasn't really gone out.
I mean, you say that, but I can't really think of that many, like, family sitcoms.
That one
like,
with
really
Matt LeBlanc that just came on, you know, Dad's Home or something.
Did anybody watch that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what they're putting out, you know, mostly.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
Modern Family, I mean, I guess that's kind of like, you know, thing. It's all kind of like, it's evolved from, you know, like the Dick Van Dyke Show and all that kind of stuff, and I Love Lucy. Mm. But it's really just kind of...
I mean, we've had easily just as many non-family oriented...
Yeah, I suppose so.
...sitcoms. I mean, Cheers and Taxi. Yeah. Seinfeld and Friends.
Friends.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Are you just repeating me now?
I mean, Friends really, though, that was the same sort of thing, but, you know... Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Yeah, there's arguments to be had. I mean, Seinfeld was the closest kind of thing, you know, to, like, alternative comedy.
You know, we had Golden Girls, Designing Women, Wings. I don't know why I'm thinking of all of these, like, 80s and early 90s sitcoms.
Roseanne is what I'm saying. You know, that was a popular one, so they were just like, that's the one. We've got to, like...
Yeah.
We've got to repeat this, you know, more like this.
Yeah.
You know?
But anyway, I think The Young Ones has a really big cult following even in this country, because I think that they aired it on MTV in the 80s.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, for people who had MTV in the like late 80s. Yeah, so I think
Rick Mail, Adrian Edmondson, and Nigel Planer were in it.
I was never a fan of Rick Mail since I saw Drop Dead Fred.
Yeah, that was his own. He was another, you know, another major player in Blackadder.
I just was not, again with the boogers. It's just like it was not. I don't know. It was. I knew a lot of kids who liked that film when we were little, but it was just like, nah. Next on the list is one that I definitely could not and did not.
This was not a comedy. This is the first one that's not a comedy.
Get on board with when we watched this, and I think it was very highly acclaimed. It was acclaimed.
It's still acclaimed in Britain.
And that is Our Friends in the North.
Yeah.
And that was actually a miniseries. It was not.
It was a miniseries.
It was not a drama series or long running anything. It was just a however many part episode.
It was like, I think it was like an 8-part miniseries or something. Yeah. And it chronicled 4 friends who lived up in the northeast of England from the 1960s to the 1990s, which is when it aired. It was the launching pad for the careers of Daniel Craig, Mark Strong, Christopher Eccleston, and Gina McKee.
It was a drama, and it was just so...
It was depressing in a way, because...
Depressing, yeah.
Because their lives didn't turn out as great as, you know... I mean,
I'm American. I need a happy ending, okay? I need, like, everything tied up in a pretty bow. I need the princess to be awoken by the prince, you know? It's like I need these things to happen in the end.
Well, sometimes the prince just gets old and dies.
Sometimes everyone gets horrible diseases and dies and just... No.
I think Geordie Peacock, which was Daniel Craig's character, came off the worst in that, for over the years. Because, I mean, he started out as kind of like this young Jack the Lad who was, like, good and stuff. But then as the decades wore on, his character just got,
Yeah.
I think he was a tramp by the end, I think.
So this was Daniel Craig's launching pad, apparently.
Yeah, it wasn't his first production by any means. I mean,
but
he was in Moll Flanders and all this, but it's what made him. It's what made him, yeah.
And who else was in it?
Christopher Eccleston, who was the Ninth Doctor.
Mark Strong. Yeah, that's it.
And I mean, he wasn't playing a bad guy in this one.
There was
Gina McKee as well.
There were actually a lot of people,
and there was a lot of people,
small parts.
Yeah, it was like everybody was in it.
But you guys, I'm not really that big on. Well, I say that I've watched a lot of drama now that I've met Dominic over the last few years, but
kitchen sink drama.
What do you mean by kitchen sink?
Meaning it's close to reality and not like, Lifetime drama.
Yeah, I guess
it's not like people busting in your house and stalking you and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's kind of drama I prefer.
That's the kind of the drama that couldn't actually happen to me, and
Well, it could, I suppose, but
you're gonna get a stalker who's gonna bust in through the window with a knife. You never know.
You never know.
But
Let's not give anyone any ideas, okay? No, I'm just not a big drama person before. I mean, I've said it on the podcast before, and this was definitely no exception. I just could not get into it. It was like every episode got more and more horrendous, And,
what is happening?
And then there's just no relief at the end.
I do remember you turning to me and going, "I can't watch any more of that." You kind of like said, "I can't watch any more of it because it's not getting better."
Yes.
Do you remember? It's like, it's just terrible, and these terrible things are happening to these people.
Are their lives going to get
their
any
lives
better?
Are just their lives are not going to get any better, and they're just
The next one on the list is one that you just recently showed me, Wurzel Gummidge.
Yeah, Wurzel Gummidge.
The show itself is not bad. It's just a kid's show. It's like...
It was a kid's show starring John Pertwee in the late 70s, early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
As the titular character. And then they've kind of done it in like a mini-series format now.
Yeah. With
Mackenzie Crook. And I think he's on his game. If you don't know who he is, he was Gareth Mackenzie in The Office. Gareth from the British Office.
And if you still don't know who he is, he was the pirate in Pirates of the Caribbean whose eyeball kept popping out.
Yes, that too. And, I mean, he's writing and directing all these kind of like shows. I mean, Detectorists was his with Toby Jones, and that was just absolutely brilliant. Mm-hmm. And, it visually, he's really good at creating like that English feel to things, it's like what PBS loves. He's just got on tap, It's like, so I'm surprised. I don't know if Detectorists ever came on PBS, but that was a really good show. And he's done Wurzel Gummidge now, and he's reimagined it. And people when it came out, they were like, "Oh, he looks like Freddy Krueger." It's creepy and it's terrible.
Okay, so he's a scarecrow for some reason.
He's a scarecrow
that comes to life. No one knows why. It's inexplicable. It's random, and it's very disturbing. He's not a cute little scarecrow that you see like people sticking up in their front yards at Halloween, with a little triangle nose. He's not a cute little scarecrow.
He's not cute, and I'm like, scarecrows aren't cute anyway.
They are cute. Have you ever seen The Wizard of Oz?
The Wizard of Oz.
Now, he was a cute little scarecrow. I mean, he wasn't actually as cute. The scarecrows I mean. They have the straw hair hanging down, the cute little floppy hats, and a little triangle nose. It's just like painted onto the burlap head and a little smiley face. No, he's all gnarly and he looks like a tree for some reason, and I don't even know what he's supposed to be made of.
He's made of like straw and like,
He's
like
not
wood
straw.
and...
He looks like a tree. He looks like a horrible tree man.
And he's got like, he's gnarled and
he looks horrible.
Yeah, I mean, he had, Mackenzie Crook plays him, so.
I googled it, and apparently British people didn't like it either.
They're like, oh, it's creepy. I don't like this.
Yes.
Not my Wurzel.
Oh, he's the stuff of nightmares.
But it's a good, there's good adaptations of it. So if they do any more, I'll definitely watch.
I mean,
I used to watch the thing,
I'm a fantasy person. I love fantasy, so...
Yeah, this should have been right up your street.
But it's such a weird... It's a bizarre concept.
He's a scarecrow on Scatterbrook Farm.
And he comes to life for no apparent reason
for these
whatsoever.
two kids, he starts talking to them, and, it's... he's not supposed to talk to humans, Because all the other scarecrows come to life, too. He's got Aunt Sally.
And they're all freaking creepy as crap. They are all so horrible looking. Like, you cannot stand looking at these scarecrows, you guys. It's literally like, it's like a nightmare. It's like... It's
not a nightmare. It's like cute.
It's like
honestly, give it a chance if you can. If you can see it, Wurzel Gummidge from like 2019, 2020, I think. Came out. You can watch it. I mean, I think the John Pertwee series is available, but that's more like 1970s, 80s production value. This one's much more visually stunning. The story's well told. The kids are great. Everything's, it looks good. It's high production value.
Except the scarecrows, which do not look good. The next one on the list is Rab C. Nesbitt.
Another scarecrow drama.
No, I can't remember that much about this because I think I only made it through a couple episodes and I was just no.
It's very regional. You want to talk about regional comedy, like people talk about, British comedy, I don't get it, I don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
This is like regional comedy in Britain. It's Scottish humour.
He's just so but Two Doors Down was like a Scottish.
Yeah, but there you go. That was more.
Thing.
That was more like
that
was more like a traditional sitcom format. Like this thing happening, the crazy situations.
Nesbitt is so grubby and bleh. I don't know. I just can't.
What it. It's like, think about Rabsy Nesbitt. Think about to a lesser extent, Only Fools and Horses. Those are the kind of shows that would never, ever get made over here. Purely because of the mindset behind them. It's like, where is the comedy in a down-and-out dole scrounger who doesn't want to work?
No, you can't say that because you're forgetting the show that we did remake over here and it was quite big.
Steptoe and Son?
Yeah.
Sanford and Son, yeah, which was Steptoe and Son. And it's like, yeah, that's true, right?
Mm-hmm.
And without getting into like the epithets of it and all that, it's like, yeah, there's a reason they did that.
Yeah. But that's what that was about, and it was funny. It was quite funny, popular. Yes. But yeah, no, that's true. Someone on welfare, haha. I can't imagine people in America finding that funny.
Someone's on welfare.
People would be complaining, actually.
They'd complain to Ofcom about it, would they?
Complaining. I think so.
They can be like, I don't want to look at some guy who's grubby.
But yeah, to quickly explain
Rabsy Nesbitt is. He's this guy. He's Glasgow's philosopher, self-styled. He kind of talks to the camera as well. In some of it, like breaks the fourth wall, but it's not like a documentary style. It's like a sitcom format. He's got a family. He's got friends and the various schemes and stuff happen to them,
Yeah.
Like they get together at the pub and they go, what are we going to do now? We're going to do this. I mean, I haven't seen it for years, but he's like the lowest class ever in Scotland. He's constantly like, he wears like an old pinstripe suit and a string vest, and he's overweight, and he wears this like sweaty hairband. And, he's smoking, and his fingers are all nicotine stained, and he drinks, and it's just, it's kind of like alternative comedy again, but Scottish.
Yeah.
Because, I remember one thing where he was like walking around and he had a knife sticking out of his back because someone had knifed him.
You showed me that one, maybe.
And the cop was like that. Oh, why are you walking around? What are you walking around with that knife sticking out your back? Like,
you guys, his face has just gone red. He can barely breathe because he's laughing so much.
What are you walking around like that for? You need to get that knife taken out or whatever. Go to hospital. Not like really like concerned for him, but You know, it's like, because I think he asks for money or something from someone.
Yeah.
And they said, well, we're not going to give you any money because you're going to drink it all away.
Oh, God.
And he goes, no, if I drink it all away, it's just going to spurt out the back of me.
Oh, jeez.
But yeah, you know, it's just funny. And, you know, but I can understand why America would never get Rabsy Nesbitt, because of the accents and the dialect.
Maybe that's why I didn't. Maybe I was just like,
you know, all Scottish, you know, very Glaswegian,
maybe
very
I'll have to give it
local.
another shot now, because it seems like it was years ago that you showed that to me.
Yeah.
The next one on the list is Stella Street, and the reason for this is just because
it's kind of sketch showy.
It's silly. It's just not my kind of humor.
They had an idea these two guys to create a show where all these celebrities live kind of like on the same street in Surbiton in Surrey, and they're like major celebrities like Jack Nicholson, Joe Pesci, Roger Moore, Michael Caine, David Bowie. You know, all these like high profile celebrities. They all live kind of like on Stella Street.
Yeah.
And they're all kind of like played up to their like stereotypical views. Like Joe Pesci is like the Goodfellas Joe Pesci, you know.
Yes.
They had Al Pacino in it as well, who was like the Godfather Al Pacino. Michael Caine is Alfie, you know.
Yeah.
Roger Moore is kind of like, he's not even really James Bond. He's just kind of like Roger Moore, because he's like, you know, he was Roger Moore, you know. And, you know, Jack Nicholson is as good as it gets, I think, you know, you know, he's kind of shining character, but he's always in an Hawaiian shirt and...
Oh, Chinatown.
Chinatown, that's it. But yeah, you know, like, so they're all kind of like played like that. And I found it, because I remember watching it on BBC Two one night. My dad was like, oh, I don't know what this is. And it looked like home video. And it's like strong language and everything, but you know, oh, what's that? You know, and I was watching it, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty funny.
It's not.
And it was. I mean, if you like that kind of thing, you'll love it. So, give it
Speaking
a try.
of not funny, next is The Fast Show.
Johnny Depp appeared on The Fast Show, okay? He was a big fan, so Johnny's all right by me in that regard.
Oh, gosh. You know, I don't mind sketch comedy that much. You know, it just has to be
Paul
like...
Whitehouse.
It has to be... funny. And the thing is I don't ever find a whole episode of sketches funny, because not all the sketches are funny, no matter what, whether it's Saturday Night Live.
The Fast Show was pretty much dead on for the 90s. I remember everybody loving it, you know.
Yeah.
It was
I know it's very popular, but yeah, it's just not. I'm just not into it. I'm just not feeling it.
I mean, Rolly Berkeley QC, who was the big tiger eyes, and she was like, and I was very, very drunk, you know.
Yeah,
that kind of like thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great, you know. And they did a final episode of it. I don't know if they've come back. And Johnny Depp was in the final episode.
You know,
he was in the Suits You sketch. Suits you, sir.
Yes.
Suits you.
I don't know. Oh. I don't know what qualifies as being too silly for me, though, because you and I just got finished watching The Windsors, and that was nothing if not extraordinarily silly.
If you want an alternative to The Crown, The Windsors is it.
Yes. I guess just the style of the way they were making fun and sort of sticking close to the truth and to the headlines and stuff that we've all seen. Yeah.
I guess think it was just kind of like exaggerated, kind of like cartoonish.
Yeah. Oh, very cartoonish.
It was like Spitting Image, but with actual people and not.
What is Spitting Image?
Oh, that was a sketch show in the 80s where they had puppets who would like act out the order of the day, you know, and they were like grotesque looking puppets and voiced by like people like Kate Robbins.
British people love grotesque things.
No, they don't, apparently. Not anymore.
That's the theme. That's like
Spitting Image would be like Margaret Thatcher and Falklands and all that, you know.
I think that was more of like there must be some other grotesque things that you show me, because that I just cannot get into. You're like, no, it's cute, whatever. And like Wurzel Gummidge. And I'm just like, no, it's horrible. I can't even focus on what the story is or anything, because it's just so like unattractive to look at. It's so grotesque. That's the perfect word.
But you hurt his feelings. You hurt Wurzel's feelings then. And that's how you go. You're looking at the personality like, oh no, I hurt his feelings.
The last one on the list is fairly recent, and that is, again, a miniseries, not an actual.
Was it a mini? Oh, yeah, it was a miniseries, wasn't it? I think it was like 3 parts or something.
I think so, yeah. And that is The Casual Vacancy.
A Casual Vacancy.
Yeah, by J.K. Rowling.
J.K. Rowling, under the pen name of Robert Galbraith, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she kind of did that as it was crazy.
It was
I
a
think
bit
Rory
like Our
Rory
Friends
Kinnear,
in the North. It was just depressing and horrible. You know, it's one of those things that at the end of it, because there's no sort of like real ending, because you're just looking at these people whose lives are just absolutely tragic.
They tear apart their lives because of this guy who died. I think he killed himself or something, didn't he?
I can't remember.
But it was played by Rory Kinnear, and Michael Gambon was in it, and a load of other people, you know, they wanted to do it.
It's just depressing and horrible, and there's no relief at the end, because it just ends, and you're just meant to think, well, these people are just going on with this horrible, depressing life, and there's no, like...
There's no uptick for them, you know, really.
There isn't. And you just like...
Because there was a casual vacancy.
It just ends, and you're just sitting there like, why have I just wasted however many hours of my life watching that? It didn't add anything,
I need to be gotten in the feels, but I also need to be uplifted and make sure they're okay.
Like, This Is Us, they do that perfectly, I think. You know?
Yeah, can you imagine if This Is Us and it was just all like, you know, no light at the end of the tunnel? It was just darkness all the time. Can you imagine how many people are just like, oh, I can't watch this anymore, it's just getting too depressing, goodbye.
Yes, there's like no happiness or wonderfulness in this at all.
And on that note, we probably should say goodbye, because this has probably been one of the most depressing episodes we've ever done. And it's just not going to get any better, I'm afraid. Next episode is going to be very depressing,
We're just going to end it. We're just going to end it there, and you're just going to have to imagine that we're carrying on with this conversation endlessly.
On an endless loop.
But no, let us know on social media. We're at TButty, TEABUTTY, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Let us know if you've ever seen a British sitcom, comedy, drama, whatever, any kind of television series, miniseries that you were just like, you just did not get. Maybe you've heard a lot of people talking about it, and so
couldn't get into it,
and you checked it out, and you just could not get into it. I'm really curious to know what you guys
tell us all about it.
Which ones you guys couldn't get into. But yeah, other than that, I think it's time to say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, we appreciate your support. Bye.
Bye.